Let's start.
Living like a refugee, it's not easy.
Yeah.
You see, I just took all the problems, the suffering of the people, and then make a song of it.
You left your country to seek refuge in another man's land. You left your country to seek refuge.
Today, in the world, there is an estimated 67 million people displaced from their homes. About 15 million of these people are official refugees, individuals and families who are successfully defined within Article 1 of the UN Convention relating to the status of refugees.
Living like a refugee, no, it's not easy. It's really not easy. Living like a refugee, it's not easy. Oh, we on time. Living like a refugee, no, it's not easy. It's really not easy. Living like a refugee, it's not easy.
The remaining portion represents two groups of people. The first make up a mass exodus of people who are displaced within their own countries. They are known as internally displaced persons. The second group are those whose claim for refugee status has not yet been determined and are known as asylum seekers. Sudan, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Iraq, and Somalia are the worst affected regions of the world, with over 1 million people displaced from their homes in these nations. They flee from armed conflict, environmental destruction, and state or militia-run persecution. Over half of displaced people are children. They are the main victims of conflict. A displaced person, whether internally or transnationally displaced, is vulnerable to exploitation, trafficking, disease, and a suspension of their human rights. However, displaced children are more vulnerable to such maltreatment. They are likely to be recruited as child soldiers, more likely to experience sexual abuse in containment camps, and will lack access to a decent education in their lifetime. Today, more than 12 million displaced children on their way to school will have their physical security threatened. Many of them have become de facto parents to their younger siblings. The rising number of displaced persons only serves to increase insecurity in the world. In addition to the causal factors of displacement, the immigration policies of Western nations are only adding to this insecurity by deterring and restricting the movement of asylum seekers. The use of prolonged mandatory detention and third country policies have led to a steady decline of asylum applications over the past decade. These immigration policies, fueled by an exaggerated xenophobia in the domestic sphere, are encouraging asylum seekers to bypass the processing system and enter nations illegally as undocumented non-citizens. They are also forcing potential asylum seekers to simply remain in their countries where the threat of persecution is very real. As a result, the number of internally displaced persons has also steadily increased over the past decade.
We're running for our safety. We're running for our lives. We are the creators.
As signatories to the UN Refugee Convention, member states need to honor their obligation and process asylum seekers so they are not returning potential refugees back to their country of persecution. Deterrent and restrictive immigration policies only serve to violate the convention by discouraging individuals and families from being able to be recognized as rightful refugees. This is a human right violation in itself. The Secretary-General, alongside the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, must ensure that member states are meeting their obligations and call out those states who are not.
From come to come. Now you be
The Secretary-General should continue to support member states who are able to provide for the local integration of IDPs and refugees, especially when a conflict remains unresolvable. In 2010, the governments of Iraq, Peru, and Colombia successfully coordinated special protection programs which aimed to integrate IDPs into the local population. However, not all states or local populations have been as accommodating. Integrated IDPs and refugees often face social and political alienation, second-class status, and rejection in their new communities.
My name is Bobby Whitfield, and I'm a founding member and immediate past president of both the Liberian Association of Queensland as well as the Queensland African Communities Council. Despite our best efforts to successfully integrate and settle in our new country, politicians from major political parties in Australia always choose to use us as political football or pawns. You know, I wonder, why do you do it, and why should we vote for you?
Sir, you don't get tarpaulin.
To improve the standing of displaced persons, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the Secretary-General should promote and recommend implementing the Framework on Durable Solutions for Internally Displaced Persons. This proposal, which was endorsed by the UN Interagency Standing Committee in 2010, sets out 8 goals to be met in order to adequately protect the rights of official refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced persons. These goals are physical security, basic needs such as food, water, housing, healthcare, and basic education, long-term safety and security and freedom of movement, the opportunity of employment and livelihood, the restoration or compensation of property, the ability to replace personal documentation, reunification with family members separated during displacement, the ability to participate in public affairs on an equal basis with the resident population, and access to justice and legal redress. Besides these proposals, the Secretary-General can exercise their power under Article 99 of the UN Charter and bring to the attention of the Security Council that the cornerstone policy of any UN-sanctioned peacekeeping and intervention force should prioritize the protection of innocent civilians. This motion could potentially decrease the number of future displacements in the world and reduce instability in the international community.
Like a refugee, it's not easy. It's really not easy.
All the refugees who are living in this region will be relocated into another safer area. Pack up your load and be ready to go. It's final. Refugee rolling, you rolling like a rolling stone. Refugee